Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. This is the Reproductive Freedom Fund grant webinar. We are pre-recording this because we are in a quick rush to get this information to you. So let us get started. My name is Erica Hidrovo-Cuesta. I use she and her pronouns, and I'm the program officer at the Women's Foundation. And with me today, I have my amazing colleagues, our community impact team. We have Lakora Bradford Kesty. She is our Vice President of Community Impact. And we also have Hannah Elias, our Senior Manager, Systems and Database Administration. We also have Project Manager James Arroyo Miller. He's not with us today, but this is our amazing team. So any questions about our community impact team, here is our information. All right, so what are we going to talk about today? We have to offer information about the Women's Foundation of Minnesota. So if you're new to us, welcome. We are going to talk about the Reproductive Freedom Fund in detail. So we just talk through the request for proposal. And we're also going to cover the application components, how to access the grant portal, and our timeline, and also address some frequently asked questions that we've received in the past week. All right, so who are we? We are the Women's Foundation of Minnesota. We are a statewide community foundation with a mission to end systemic inequities and drive innovation for gender and racial justice. We recently launched a new strategic plan with the goal of addressing inequities impacted by gender racial injustice. And we have this vision to create a world of equal opportunity where all women and gender expansive people across intersecting identities and their families hold the power to create and lead safe, prosperous lives. We are doing this with the values of hope, generosity, courage, inclusion, and belonging. And we have different levers of this work, but today we're going to specifically talk about community investing. Our framework. This is the framework we use across all of our grant programs, across our operations, and the work that we are implementing across all of our levers. We ask for organizations to think about this intersectional equity framework because it is what we use throughout our selection process. It is the framework used from our participatory grant making committees, and it has helped shape how to address equity and justice within gender and race. And so what I love the most about this framework is that there are questions that makes us think deeply about this work on how are women, girls, men, and boys differently affected or are misrepresented or impacted, how are racial and ethnic communities differently or disproportionately affected, how are rural communities differently affected, and then additional identities such as sovereignty, class, age, ability, sexual orientation, immigration status, how are they impacted by inequities. And so this is our framework, and we continue to think through what this looks like as we implement this work. And with that, I will pass it to my colleague Lakora to share about our holistic well-being and reproductive justice impact area and our funding overview.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Erica. Again, I'm Lakora Bradford Kesty. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Vice President of Community Impact here at the Women's Foundation. So just a little overview of holistic well-being and reproductive justice. So again, we launched a new strategic plan. A part of that new strategic plan was launching this new impact area. And so this is our fourth and newest impact area for the foundation. We've always been a pro-choice women's organization, but we wanted to make sure that we were extra explicit about what that looked like coming out of the uprising for racial justice. And how can we continue to activate our community members and really talk about this really important work? And so, to understand the impact area, we really need to talk about a couple definitions. The first definition is is health. And when we talk about health, we want to make sure that folks know that this is, again, a state of complete physical, mental, and social well being. And so making sure that that's explicitly clear, talking, and we got that definition really looking at the World Health Organization and how they're talking about health. And then when we talk about reproductive justice, right, this is a little nuanced. And so we use the Sister Song's definition for reproductive justice. If you're unfamiliar with Sister Song, they're an amazing organization led by amazing Black and BIPOC community members that really talk about the right to maintain personal bodily autonomy, the right to have children, the right not to have children, and then again, that right to parent the children we have in safe and sustainable communities. And we use these definitions to kind of activate and bring clarity to this impact area. Next, we like to talk about how we, again, activate this impact area through our levers. One way that we do it is through community investment. I'll go through a little bit deeper around how we're going to do that through this reproductive freedom fund, but we also use our other levers around policy and advocacy, making sure that this fund aligns with the policy work that we're doing in community, that it aligns with how we're talking about it strategically and the narrative change that needs to happen around it, because reproductive justice is healthcare. We also want to talk about and use it through our listening and our research. We didn't just get here by accident. That's because we used our listening and our convening levers, our relationships to really talk about and activate how we do this work ongoingly. Now we'll jump into what is it? So we talked about holistic well-being and reproductive justice, gave you a little overview around what that looked like, but now I'm really excited to talk about this new fund, our Reproductive Freedom Fund. And so we conducted a field scan with Suzanne Koplinger. Thank you. Shout out to her. We talked to some amazing community members. We listened in communities, specifically in our greater and rural communities, to really bring this reproductive freedom fund to life. We gathered internally as a team to really talk about this work and be intentional about what did we really want to focus on when we talk about healthcare. And what we uncovered is that there's a huge need. There's a huge need in how we do this work. And we're really proud to use Sister Song's definition to activate what this looks like. And so you'll see when I go deeper that that's the heart of the work, using that definition to activate all of the funding categories that we have. So this fund is a 1-year investment of $50,000. We split the fund up to talk about $40,000 will go towards the work. $10,000 will be restricted for staff wellness and development. And again, staff get to decide, what does that development look like? What does that wellness look like, based on whatever they feel will serve the organization best. Okay. And when we talk about this work, we have some funding categories, but also we want to make sure that folks know that these activities and the goals that we are listed are not limited. Okay. The work that we are doing can be new or ongoing. And then again, that the Women's Foundation will fund general operating support for this work. And so I'll talk about these 5 categories. So the first category in the Sister Song definition is bodily autonomy. And one of the things in this focus area that we found from listening to our communities, touring some of these organizations, was that youth health education and gender affirming care is crucial and critical. You can see the goals here. Some of the activities that we were thinking about when we were imagining what this could look like is, one, creating a comprehensive health education program and supporting implementation of the standardized health curriculum in Minnesota, which got passed. Woo woo. We were also thinking about clinics providing under-resourced rural communities with the critical cultural competency services that are needed, such as gender affirming care. We are also thinking about programs that educate and support youth mental health and what those challenges could look like for those young people, and then initiatives that reduce barriers to healthcare access. So that's bodily autonomy. That's the first category. The second category is the right to have a child. And so, again, you can see the goals listed, but the focus really was around culturally responsive maternal and paternal health care. And so some activities that we were thinking about for this fund was program support for underserved and marginalized pregnant individuals, increasing resources for community based maternal and paternal health education, and then initiatives to reduce maternal mortality and morbidity rates. So, making sure that we had both of those identified. Category 3, the right not to have a child. So, this focus area really is on reproductive choice and access. And again, you can see the goals, but some of the examples that we were thinking about for related activities were organizations offer confidential reproductive health services. Programs address a geographic and economic barriers to the reproductive health care. And then lastly, education and counseling services related to those reproductive choices. The next category, the fourth one, is the right to parent safe and sustainable communities. And so this focus area was really around families and that child well being. We want to talk about families and really support them, right? So, some of those activities could look like culturally specific services and programs that support our Black, our Indigenous, Asian, and Pacific Islanders, and our Latine families. Organizations offering parenting and or like co-parenting coaching resources, and then education for families to navigate school systems. The last but not least, and also so important, we're a systems change organization ourselves. And so we talk about grant making, how we need the direct service and the systems change piece. And so this was also big for us to have. And I think it has the most goals. But in this focus area, we really wanted to highlight research. We wanted to focus on coalition building, movement organizing, advocacy, and narrative change as a way to talk about systems change for reproductive justice. And so, some examples, again, not limited to these at all, but here's what we were thinking about was address the systems that provide high quality childcare and education, to convene community organizations, build those grassroots leaderships, and work together with impacted communities to advance policy. We also talked about conducting research that builds towards economic stability for families, working towards non-discriminatory healthcare policies. Another thing is supporting narrative change work that improves outcomes for children and families. And then last but not least, increase investments to pass legislation for community-based reproductive health services. I just want to make sure before I pass it on to Erica to talk about our grant information and timeline here. Again, there's a lot in each of these funding categories. We're asking that you choose one of the funding categories. And when you choose one of those funding categories and you're looking at the goals and you're looking at the activities, again, we want to support the work that's ongoing and we want to support anything that you think of that's new and innovative and creative that is going to continue to strengthen our communities when we talk about women, girls, and gender expansive folks. All right. Now I want to pass it over to Erica to talk about grant information and the timeline.
Yeah, let's keep us going. So for the grant information, like Lacora shared, it is an investment of $50,000, a 1-year investment. $40,000 of the grant will be to support the work, and 10,000 will be restricted to staff wellness and development. We don't have any definition or examples for the staff wellness and development. This is up to your organization's discretion on what that looks like. But if it is helpful, we did make grants in 20, was it 2022, 2023 when we did the rest up grants? And we have on our website examples of how organizations used $10,000 for staff wellness. So we can definitely share that as well as examples. Grant eligibility we have is an organization that has 501(c)(3) status, and schools that are based in Minnesota, and their programs operate in Minnesota. We also have for eligibility unincorporated organizations with tax exempt fiscal sponsorship and American Indian nations. For funding criteria, we have programs located in Minnesota. Programs are specific to Minnesota women, girls, and gender expansive people. And organizations are serving at least 50 to 75% of women, girls, and gender expansive people. Our definition of a woman is anyone who identifies as a woman. The program is inclusive of transgender, gender nonconforming, gender non-binary, and all gender expansive people who experience gender-based structural harm. We also ask for organizations that to show their ability to work in partnership with other organizations and programs that are driving innovative solutions to advance gender and racial equity and justice by increasing access to our impact area, holistic well-being, and reproductive justice. Another criteria is showing that the organization is mission aligned and inclusive. So they're aligned with Women's Foundation's mission and vision and values of hope, generosity, courage, inclusion, and belonging. Their board, their board members, their staff, and volunteers are representative of the population served. The organizations are inclusive to the value and perspective and contributions of all people. And then a few priority groups that the Women's Foundation has funded historically is organizations working within intersectionality, so using gender and intersectionality in their lens as a lens in their work, um, uh, focused on gender and then focused on race and additional identities. So um, organizations led by Black, Indigenous, women of color, organizations that are serving specifically communities that are LGBTQ plus and or live with a disability. So these are a few priority groups. And the reason we have this listed as a priority is because of the statistic that BIPOC-led organizations are less likely to be awarded grant funds, which leads to those organizations having budgets of 24% smaller than white-led organizations. So this is an important statistic to share as information because we want to be mindful of why we do this. And then lastly, organization activities and groups that are not eligible for funding at the Women's Foundation is our individual projects with religious institutions that don't align with the Women's Foundation's values and mission, retroactive support of projects and activities, individual scholarships to attend college or university with the exception of We Thrive grants, capital campaigns, fundraising events with the exception of sponsorship grants, individual grants, organizations that may be deemed as discriminatory based on race, creed, color, ethnicity, national origin, religion, sex, sexual orientation, gender expression, age, physical and mental ability, veteran status, military obligation, and marital status. Organizations that limit or oppose a woman's right to self-determination, reduction of an operating deficit, or to liquidate existing debt. So if your organization is sunsetting, and then not complying with an IRS standards. Lastly, we have the grant reporting and grant review timeline. So we will be asking information at the end of the grant period about your work. We are currently working on what that looks like because we have created a grant reporting process where we want it all to be in one place and we want it all to be consistent. So we haven't yet finalized what this looks like, but we will share more information with you later in the year. And we'll make sure you have time to make sure you have this information done ahead of time. And then for timeline, we do have a participatory grant making committee that will be supporting the funding decisions. And so with this timeline, the committee will be meeting on February 19th. We are working hard to get the applications in before then so that our committee has time to review them. And then our committee will be using the intersectional equity framework to really support the decision-making process. So this is an area that we get asked a lot is how are decisions made? This is an example. The intersectional equity framework are the questions that the committee will be asking as they review the proposals. And then following the committee meeting on the 19th of February, we'll have notifications sent to organizations about their grant application. We will try to get funds out the door as soon as possible. And yeah, this is a 1 year investment. So, any changes to this timeline, we will be communicating it to you through our community impact email. So, any questions around this timeline, you can send them there or you can email me or Hannah in that regard. And now I will pass it to my amazing colleague, Hannah.
Thank you, Erica. Thank you, Lacora, for all of your wonderful wisdom as we record this HWRJ webinar. So again, my name is Hanny Elias, and I am going to talk a little bit about the grant application itself and then how to access our portal to submit the application. So first and foremost, I'm going to do kind of a high-level overview of what the application looks like, and then I'll hand it back off to Erica to do a deep dive into the proposal description. So again, high level overview of the application. The first section, we're asking for pretty basic organization information. We're looking for, your mailing address, your organization's website, your mission, general phone number, email to reach you at, your tax ID, if you are a 501c3. If you are not an established 501c3, we will also ask for your fiscal sponsor's information. We can grant to a fiscal sponsor that is a 501c3 if you do not have 501c3 status. So, and we're also going to ask for the grant contact's name, meaning anybody who is filling out the application and or needs to be aware of where the grant application is in the grant making process. So we'll ask for their name, title, and an email. And we will also ask for the executive director's name and email. We try to get that information beforehand because if your organization is approved for a grant, we will need to reach out directly to your executive director for signatures on various documentation. So we try to get that ahead of time. So that's the organization information section. Then we move on to the proposal description, which is the essential questions of the application. And like I said, we'll do a little bit of a deep dive into those proposal questions in a moment. The third section of the application is the wonderful and famous Women's Foundation Demographic Survey. If you've applied with us before, you have seen this survey or a version of this survey. Little context around it, it is required information that we ask all of our applicants, partially because we're looking to see the impact of your programming, who you're serving, and also because these are questions that our funders ask of us. So when we have to fill out our own evaluation reports, we also like to be able to give some of this information to our own funders. So it's helpful for our participatory grant making committee, and it's helpful for the Women's Foundation, which is why it is required information that we ask of you. You will see we ask for race and ethnicity of your participants, gender identity of your participants, location, so where a lot of your participants are living or located, uh, identities like LGBTQ or disabled applicant or not, pardon me, not applicants, program participants. We will ask about age demographics, education demographics, and then if your organization is BIPOC led and serving BIPOC communities. So can look forward to all of that. And we always offer or look forward to feedback on the demographic survey. And then finally, the fourth and final portion of the application is attachments. So basically, additional documentation we're looking for along with your organization's information, your proposal description, and the demographic survey. In this case, we are looking for your current fiscal year budget, your year-to-date income and expense statement, a board list. We usually ask for a board list with your board's demographics because we want to see what your governing body looks like. And then we will ask for your most recently filed 990 with the IRS, or if you are a newer organization and you have yet to file a 990, we'll ask for your IRS determination letter. So those are your attachments that you can look forward to. And then I will hand it back off to Erica real quick to go a little bit more in depth with those proposal description questions.
Thanks, Hannah. Yeah, so really briefly, these are the questions in the grant proposal. We are asking for each question to be answered in 1 to 2 paragraphs, so not too long. And really, it's 3 questions. The first question is a drop-down list question. We ask you to choose the funding category that your organization will be using the funds for. And those are the 5 categories that Lacora talked over. We want to make sure you select one only because all of the grant applicants that selected that funding category will be reviewed in that one category. The second question is describe your proposed work and how the funds will be used to adapt your work. So this is really talking about how you're using the funds in that category and sharing any examples or activities that already include that's already been part of your work. And then third question is around evaluation. So how do you anticipate to evaluate this work and the outcomes in this work? Again, we don't have any evaluation questions yet, but we will be asking later this year what that will be. So if you already are evaluating this work, that will be really helpful to share in the proposal. And then lastly, how to use intersectional equity lens in your work. I'm sure this is coming up a lot and a lot as we talk about it, but again, really want to emphasize the importance of using gender, race, and additional these questions that from the framework into your work. If you do not use this work and if you do not use this lens in your work, I encourage you to still answer those questions in a way that you think would be helpful for the committee to know. And also any challenges as well. Like, so these questions also bring what challenges that your organization may be facing in using this kind of lens in your work. So this is also important for the committee to note as you think about how you want to write this proposal. So I'm happy to also share a few examples and questions in a phone call about this, but this is just a run through. And if it is taking too long to answer these questions, please also let me know because we want to evaluate all of this process as we launch this new work. And I'll pass it back to Hannah.
Thank you, Erica. Okay, so now I'm going to do an overview of how to apply for this grant. So if you have not applied for a grant with the Women's Foundation before, you are going to want to navigate to the link in this. It's listed at the bottom of this slide. It is the registration page on our Spectrum portal or our community portal. We have all of our applicants submit through our online portal. We do require, or at least ask, that all submissions go through our online portal. However, if this does cause, if this creates a barrier for you in your organization, please reach out to us. We're happy to pivot. We're happy to be flexible. So you'll go to this link listed below, and you're going to register if you're a first-time user. So we've got a screenshot here that is what the page looks like. You're going to start by putting in your own personal information, your name, your email address as associated with your organization. And when you get down to that portal access question, you are going to select the box next to grant applicant. You want to apply for grants on behalf of an organization. You're not applying for a grant as yourself. Once you do that, that personal information section at the bottom will change over and will be an organization information section. So it's the same basic information that is being asked, but it's for an organization, the organization you're applying for. So your address, city, state, primary phone number. And then you will select, I accept the terms and conditions, and you will select register. And that's the portion that is just registering for the portal. Couple of hints and tips. We do recommend using Google Chrome or Firefox as the browser when using our portal. We have been told that those are the 2 browsers that best support our portal. And we also really ask that you consider creating a portal days in advance. Consider creating a portal account days in advance before the application deadline. And I'll go into more of the why in a moment. But those are just 2 things we really ask you to consider as you navigate to the link to register below. So once you have registered your information and your organization's information in our portal, you can go to the next slide, please. This is what your portal homepage will look like for the moment right after you've registered. It's basically saying that your information has been sent to us, and now one of us, usually me, has to go into the backside of the portal and review and approve that information. So you can submit your information, but we are required as the Women's Foundation, one of us is required to review all of your information before you have full access to the portal and all of the applications, which is why we stress that it's super important to register days beforehand because it usually will take us about 1 business day to review information and approve it so you have full access to the portal and the application. So that is what your home screen will look like. Once I go in and approve, you will have full access to the portal. You'll also receive a confirmation email that your account has been reviewed and approved. And then when you log into the portal, you are able to access the application. And there's 2 different ways you can do that. So I'm going to go over those real quick. Option 1, once you're in the portal, you can go to the upper right corner of the home screen, click on the grant applicant drop-down menu and click the home button, and that will take you to the page that looks like this screenshot here on the slide. And you'll see under all of that welcome language, there is a little tile labeled featured applications. All open applications will be listed under that featured applications title. So you can find the Holistic Wellbeing and Reproductive Justice Grant RFP link under featured applications. Select the link and you will be taken to the app. If you go to the next slide, thank you, Erica. Option 2 is you, again, go to that grant applicant drop-down menu in the top right corner of your home screen, but instead of clicking on home, you can go to available grants. And this is just a whole page on our portal site dedicated to what grant applications are open. If you see any language on other links that say like invite only, it's exactly that. So you'll probably need a password. So again, you can look for just the Holistic Wellbeing and Reproductive Justice application, and it will be on that available grants page. So a couple different ways to find it in the portal once you're in. And with that, I will pass it back to LaCora to kind of wrap us up.
Thank you, Hannah. Thank you, Erica. I just want to say I have a huge gratitude for everyone who is going to apply to this amazing fund. Just thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for taking the time to review this webinar. I have a couple last comments before we wrap up. So as far as questions, we had folks email us questions, which also prompted us to do this webinar. And so I think we answered some of them as we went through the presentation. But if you have more questions and they're specific to the database and getting into the portal, that is Hannah. So please email Hannah. And if you have programs questions related to the actual fund itself, please email Erica. Hey, Erica. And so we can certainly get those questions answered for you all as soon as we are able. Now, I need to talk about the deadline. The deadline is Tuesday, January 21st at 11:59 p.m. I would like to also say and call to your attention that it is also Martin Luther King Jr. Day on that Monday. And so the Women's Foundation's offices will be closed. And so we will not be able to help you on that day, on that Monday before. And so the last full business day is Friday, January 17th. And so if you have questions or need access to get into the portal, please, please, please have your questions by that Friday, or else it will definitely be a little bit of a slower response time just because we're going into a holiday weekend. Okay, so I just wanted to make sure I get that PSA out there. When we are talking about completing a full submission, we need a couple of things. So Hannah eloquently went through it, and I'm just going to go through the checklist. So please make sure you have 1, your application complete, 2, that demographic questions, okay? 3, taking a look at your org budget, making sure that that year to date, that income and expense statement is there. 4, uploading those financial documents, that 990, or again, if you're a newer nonprofit organization and you don't have a 990, that's okay. That's okay. But we are looking for an IRS letter of determination for submission with those in replace of those documents, okay? Then, for another addendum, we're looking for a list of current board members, including their ethnic, racial, and gender demographic information. So again, most organizations have this around who's on their board, who's serving in that breakdown. So we're asking that you have all of those things. Okay? And then this is just a side note, but if you're an organization that is using fiscal sponsorship, we welcome that. Okay? We are excited about it. Thank you. Thank you. But you have to do a little bit of extra work. You also have to include that fiscal sponsorship agreement copy from you and the fiscal sponsor that you're using. And not only do you need that form, but you need to also make sure that you have the recent audited financials, again, that 990, or again, that IRS letter of determination. And then just making sure that all of those materials are added, all of those materials have been submitted by that deadline. That's really important that we have all of that information that completes your application. So again, Hannah and Erica are your girls, your folks, okay, your folks in community that will help. If you have any technical questions or things like that regarding the actual fund or regarding the database system itself. Again, you are going to need access. So if you are not registered inside of the portal already and you're new to the game, you are going to need to get some approval. And so that requires you to be to register or begin to submit your application ahead of time. And other than that, again, I just want to say thank you. This work is incredible. You are all doing incredible work, and we can't do this work without you. So thank you. Thank you. Stay in touch.
Ciao. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay. There we go. Stop recording.